From even the greatest of horrors, irony is seldom absent. H.P. Lovecraft. Described by the Oxford Dictionary as a state of affairs or an event that seems deliberately contrary to what one expects, irony's mocking sting can strike anyone, even fictional characters. As popular as Mickey Mouse is, did you know that his recognition was surpassed by another mascot in 1992? One that rose to meteoric fame in a matter of 2 years, only to tumble from that lofty peak? That's right. I'm referring to the casualty of cruel irony himself, Sonic the Hedgehog. Back in the late 1980s, Nintendo was the home video game console undefeated champ. Sega had developed its own 8-bit Master System to compete against the NES, but it was evidence that Nintendo and its 90% market share would not be usurped in the 8-bit territory. Sega, therefore, began developing a console with a 16-bit microprocessor, the first of its type. On October 29, 1988, Sega unveiled their Mega Drive in Japan, and on August 14, 1989, it appeared in North America as the Genesis. Touting arcade-like visuals, audio, and speed, Sega of America underlined the system's technological superiority with the gutsy "Genesis does what Nintendo don't" campaign. Despite trying to corner the teenage and young adult demographic, the Genesis only sold around 500,000 units in North America, and in Japan, Nintendo's Famicom and Super Famicom were the favorites. Even with Sega's flashy graphics and aggressive advertising, Nintendo had something Sega lacked: a world-famous mascot. Sega's mascot, Alex Kidd, had not captivated people as Nintendo's Plumber had, and Mario's latest adventure at the time, Super Mario Bros. 3, was dominating game charts in North America, and the looming release of the SNES and Super Mario World in North America would only push Sega back further. Sega of Japan launched an internal competition in which employees would design a new mascot that could overthrow Mario. Phantasy Star character designer Naoto Oshima submitted multiple entries of a rabbit who could throw items with his ears, and a sketch of a hedgehog named Mr. Harinezumi, or Mr. Needlemouse. Oshima began working with lead programmer Yuji Naka, who had created a tech demo that allowed a sprite to move in tubes and along curves at high speeds. The programmers wanted to keep the game controls simple, with jump and attack using the same button. It was decided that the character had to turn into a spinning projectile when leaping. The rabbit was rejected, and focus turned to the hedgehog, Mr. Needlemouse. Oshima tweaked the design, basing the character's head on Felix the Cat's, and his body on Mickey Mouse's. He was renamed Sonic to reflect his speed. He was colored the same shade of blue as the Sega logo, given a human girlfriend named Madonna, and became the lead in an animal rock band. Sega of America disliked the band and girlfriend ideas, and they were removed. Development team AM8 worked diligently on the game for a year, and renamed themselves Sonic Team. On June 23, 1991, Sonic the Hedgehog released on the Mega Drive and Genesis to stellar reviews. Sonic represented Sega's speed, attitude, and irreverency, and he was just what they needed to compete against Mario. People purchased the Mega Drive for the chance to play Sonic. Sega even went on a nationwide tour to let people compare Super Mario World and Sonic the Hedgehog, with up to 60% of Mario fans choosing the blue blur. Sega of America rubbed more salt in the wounds by slashing Genesis's price to $149, $50 less than the Super NES, and made Sonic the Hedgehog the packing game. The plan worked like a charm, and by the end of 1991, Sega owned 60% of the market share. Sonic was unstoppable, and even Mario couldn't keep up. According to Market Evaluations Incorporated, the Hedgehog proved more recognizable than Mickey Mouse in their 1992 quotient score test. Sonic's second game, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, introduced the world's first global game launch, and went on to sell 6 million copies. For the next 2 years, the franchise barreled forward at top speed and force. The original game became the all-time best-selling Mega Drive title, and Sonic became the first video game character to star as a Macy's Thanksgiving Parade balloon in 1993. Around the early 2000s, though, something changed. Sonic's transition into the 3D world was marred by buggy gameplay, bad camera controls, and a focus on side characters. Sonic 06 marks the 15th anniversary of the franchise, but is one of the worst games featuring the Hedgehog. Its broken controls, glitches, stilted story, and interspecies romance marked a dark time for Sonic, and it only got worse. On February 6, 2014, Sega announced a new venture for their mascot, Sonic Boom. The series was meant to appeal to a new generation of Western fans. A planned global campaign included a television series, books, toys, apparel, and foods in one of Sega's largest licensing initiatives. On November 8, 2014, Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric and Sonic Boom Shattered Crystal released on the Wii U and 3DS, respectively. The games were financial and critical duds, with Rise of Lyric being the worst, hindered by a mediocre story, tedious open-world gameplay where Sonic casually jogs, and an abysmal script. The Sonic Boom series was the worst selling in the entire Sonic franchise. Sega Games CEO Haruki Satomi, in a Famitsu magazine interview, admitted Sega had betrayed fans' trust for the past decade. Head of Sonic team Takashi Iizuka said they had to expand the franchise with television and movies to keep the character relevant, while Sonic's chief brand officer Ivo Gerskevich said in June 2016 that the company intends on turning Sonic into an entertainment icon, not just a games icon. Well, good thing Sega and Sony had already planned a collaborative Sonic the Hedgehog movie. In 2013, Sony Pictures Entertainment and Sega Sammy Group's Marza Animation Planet sealed a deal to bring the Blue Blur to the big screen in a series of films, with one releasing each year. The flicks will focus on Sonic's rivalry with his friends and the nefarious Dr. Robotnik, according to Deadline. Brad Bird had been considered as the writer, but Evan Susser and Van Robichaux, whose most recent work was Fist Fight, were assigned to pen the story and script instead. Columbia/Sony Pictures production president Hannah Minghella commented, quote, "There are endless stories to tell with a character like Sonic, and a built-in international fan base. Along with our wonderful creative partners at Marza, we're looking to capture everything that generations of fans know and love about Sonic, while also growing his audience wider than ever before." Unquote. Translation: everyone already knows about this character, so we won't have to make a quality product, because the name will sell it. And a movie isn't going to grow his audience wider than ever before. The games and Sega's marketing have already done that. Since people were still reeling from the abhorrent Sonic Boom, Robichaux vowed the flick wouldn't tie in with that series. According to him, the production team was aiming for a PG-13 rating by opting to make it dark and edgy for Sonic's original fans, who are now adults. This declaration worried people. After all, Shadow the Hedgehog had also been created as a mature title in the franchise, and that turned out disastrously. Further details revealed the film would be a live-action/animation hybrid. Okay, let me gripe a bit. Live-action movies with CGI characters are categorized as live-action, not hybrid. Even the new Beauty and the Beast, which has dozens of completely computer-rendered characters, never mentions hybrid or animation. Typically, when live-action films list animation in their description, it's aimed at children, and more often than not, are garbage. We have to examine the dire implications of why this will be a hybrid movie. Sonic's home of South Island on planet Mobius is a vivid, strange place, with terrain, foliage, and physics not found on Earth, and could only be successfully replicated in a CG environment. Sonic and pals will naturally be CG, so where does the live action fit in? The hybrid designation indicates that the setting won't be Mobius, but Earth, and will feature humans. But hold on, you may say. Many of the games and cartoons show humans living alongside the anthropomorphized animals, so it might not take place on Earth. Allow me to sidetrack. 2010's Alice in Wonderland relied heavily on green screen and CGI to bring its mystical settings to life, with a budget of $200 million back in 2009, equivalents to $225 million now. Even the smallest budget for the green screen abundant Hobbit series was $180 million back in 2011. Sony's priciest recent film was 2015's Spectre, which cost $245 million. They invested such a hefty amounts, though, because James Bond is a tentpole franchise. Whenever Sony funds live-action movies that include CG characters, the budget averages $112 million, making such reliance on CGI backgrounds monetarily improbable. It's no coincidence these movies all take place on Earth, despite having plots that should suggest a fantastical setting. This tactic keeps the cost down, and can also allow the inclusion of product placement. Marza Animation Planet CEO Masanao Maeda commented that Sony Pictures had, quote, great success with hybrid animated films, and we're confident that this collaboration will bring a fresh take to Sonic, unquote. In February 2016, Sega Sammy Holdings CEO Hajime Satomi confirmed the film would get a 2018 release. 8 months later, Jeff Fowler of Blur Studio hopped on board to handle directing duties. Angolan the Insatiable's Patrick Casey and Josh Miller joined production as the story and screenplay writers. It's unclear if Robichaud and Susser are still working on this film, but their Internet Movie Database pages list them as the writers. The first film will likely be an origin story. Back in 1991, Sega of America unveiled a promotional comic explaining Sonic and Robotnik's past. Part 1 will focus on the character's backstory, with the follow-up parts outlining the games. Yet another route it could take is Sonic and pals somehow coming to our world in a Smurfs-like situation. No matter how the plot unfolds though, one thing is certain, it won't be good. Sonic used to be a symbol of quality, but over the course of 20 years, the Hedgehog has become a punchline. The inclusion of laborious story arcs, broken gameplay, guns, side characters, changing the mood to either forcefully solemn or, in whiplash contrast, patronizing, isn't what made Sonic so likable. Sega has struggled grasping that concept, and as a result, the franchise has lost its way. Remember, Sonic Boom had been approved with zeal by Sega. If they allowed such an abysmal series to bear their mascot's name only a short while ago, what's to stop them from giving the thumbs up to less than stellar motion pictures that'll spread over multiple parts? Even more disheartening, Sega is entrusting their creation to Sony Pictures, which has had a lousy cinematic track record for years. Will people want to watch this? Or these, rather. Right now, folks are cautiously optimistic about the possibilities, primarily because their nostalgia-fueled imaginations are building the films up as vibrant, running at full tilt adventures that are reminiscent of the best games. When they see the trailers, though, many of them will pass on the movie. The movie, like Sonic 06, will be expanded to bloated proportions to fill a 90-minute runtime. What will critics think about it? They'll say the films feel sluggish for such a speedy character. Some will comment that the flicks, while claiming to be 4-quadrant pieces, cater more to the younger, non-discerning demographic, and are unfocused money grabs, with substandard effects and wooden acting. Was it a good idea to make this? If the movies were out during the peak of the brand's popularity, sure, but it's a quarter of a century too late. After 2 decades of misses and some hits, consumer confidence is shaky for the Hedgehog, and the last thing his reputation needs is a set of bad films. Sony and Sega are treating them as a panacea they believe will grow his audience wider than ever before. We don't need movies to grow his audience. We need better Sonic games. This isn't the early 1990s, where the only hint of a game's story was abridged in the manual or in the intro, and audiences would flock to a big screen adaptation, no matter how atrocious it was. Since 1999, cutscenes and story arcs have been commonplace in the brand, so people won't be as easily compelled to see these uninspired movies. Even with children being the intended audience, they won't have that coveted 4-quadrant formula and may barely break even. What will be the lasting impression? Let's face it, video game movies are generally hot garbage. This set of films, with one releasing each year, will only dilute the franchise further. While the Super Mario Bros. Movie and Silent Hill movies are universally panned, the games are entertaining to play, and solid enough that the cinematic missteps are easily overlooked. A bad Sonic film will only add to the mountain of junk that bears his name. With Sega admitting they've let fans down for so long, it's an unwise move for them to permit their mascot's exploitation in mundane movies. Sega has undergone extensive restructuring and layoffs recently, and their game revenue has declined. By the end of their 2016 fiscal year, only 9 million packaged games had sold, a 25% drop from 2015. It was just 3 months later, in June 2016, that Sonic's chief brand officer announced Sega's intention to turn the Hedgehog into an entertainment icon. It seems to be a move they hope will pay off with lucrative results, just like they believe Sonic Boom would be their golden goose. It all feels eerily similar to the late 1980s Sega, when they took a gamble and entrusted their future to Sonic. Sonic the Hedgehog was created out of urgency when Sega was losing to Nintendo. The mascot captured the zeitgeist of the early 1990s. If Mario was the straight-laced, conforming yin, then Sonic was the hip, rebellious yang. In the first few years, he fulfilled Sega's wishes and was crowned the undisputed king of the 16-bit era. Sonic has since become a rare exotic bloom, and Sega's negligence has caused him to wilt. They keep reinventing him with gimmicks in hopes of reviving interest, when they should be greenlighting worthwhile titles that propel the character forward, and rejecting superfluous trash that waters down his credibility, like these movies are set to do. Even with its millions of dollars of razzle-dazzle effects, celebrity roles, and 3D action, Sony's Sonic the Hedgehog movies will fail at capturing the speed and soul of the blue blur. At only 90 seconds in length, the animated intro of 1993's Sonic CD exudes the thrill, fun, and wind-in-your-face unrestraint of Sonic's best years, more than these films ever will. I guess that's what you call irony. What's the next one? Oh boy, I can't wait. Someone's got a gripe about it, and that someone is Marplotic.